All right, of course, just if you're just joining us for a double take, we take 5 subjects and we have 2 minutes to talk about it. There's even a buzzer, and we'll kind of go back and forth on each of the subjects. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. So our first subject is the Supreme Court seats, to add seats or not to add seats.
Go ahead.
All right, so before, it's 9 right now, right? It's been 9 since 1869, and there's some congressional Democrats that are pushing to make it 13. Now, I do not think that's necessary. I do not think that's right. Even Biden has said he doesn't believe that it's something he needs to push. Even Nancy Pelosi said that she has no plans to bring it to the floor. I mean, I understand that they're unhappy with the 6-3 sway Republican right now, but I still don't think that's a reason to add more seats.
Well, it's obvious to me it's a terrible idea. Just a couple of things. You know, there are Democrats both in the House and in the Senate that have proposed legislation to do this. Now, I think that Speaker Pelosi is smart enough not to take the bait. Biden has not taken the bait, so it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
But the whole concept of this, I'll give you the biggest statistic. 26% of the people agree this is a good idea, which leaves 74% of the people that doesn't think it's a good idea. So that's the real governor as it relates to this. If we start now politically starting to change the whole construct of our government because a certain party is in control, we're going to put ourselves in a really bad situation, I think, in the future. It's the same thing as the filibuster, okay? If you really want to bust that up, and you want to do something, watch out what you wish for, because the next time that the other party is involved in control,
they'll add 3 more seats.
You're going to get stuff, shoved down your throat. It just isn't a good policy.
I agree, and I think people are upset that that President Trump was able to name 3 people in 4 years, but that's just how the cookie crumbled. It
laid out that way.
Just how it happened. It's not like the Republicans planned for this. Even the late Ginsburg said that they shouldn't have added the extra seats.
Yeah,
so.
it's just a terrible idea. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's at least worth covering on the show.
I agree.
That there is a movement here.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be presented on Thursday, so we'll see. All right, moving along, Jussie Smollett, his case was dropped. He wanted to have a dismissal for his criminal case after the hoax, the racial hoax that, he said that there were racial slurs and physical attack on him ended up being false. He wanted his case dismissed, his criminal case, and a judge said, no, we're pushing forward.
All right, we'll give you 30 seconds of this unplugged. Go ahead.
All right. I think that is absolutely ridiculous that he wanted to even get it dismissed. Because first off, he went on record and talked to the police saying that people were, throwing acid on his face. And he hired 2 people to go and create this racial and homophobic slur against him.
Paid him $350
Paid
each.
them, and on top of that, also dragged President Trump's name into it. It had them yell MAGA at him. And for him then to waste the city's resources and police searching for these people, all these people were, I'm behind Smollett. And then we've come to find out that it's all fake, and he's just doing it to raise issues, just to get notoriety. I mean, I think he should be criminally prosecuted to the most extent of the law.
And he is. And this is really not defendable. And again, this is not Republican, Democrat. There's complete unity within the population that this guy really screwed up.
Yep.
And what he did, in an attempt to help himself, he completely killed his career.
Yep.
I mean, this was all...
He was a big star on Empire.
This was an intent to basically enhance his career. You want to talk about a miscalculation.
Yep.
And again, these 2 brothers who have now turned state's evidence were paid to do this. And the issue that Jussie Smollett has is he lied to the police.
Yep.
And when you lie to the police on the record, there's a record of that. And they checked all this out, and unfortunately... You want to know what? It's a big mess.
Yep, and I'm happy that the judge didn't let it drop.
Yeah, so judge didn't let it drop, no buzzer. We actually had...
We agreed and on time.
Yeah, we actually did. All right, save the buzzer, Holden.
Yeah.
Next one.
All right, next one. We're talking about 18-year-old 18-year-olds getting behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler. So in California, there is a class, Patterson High School, I believe it is, that is talking about, let me double check that. Patterson High School, yes, in California, they're offering to seniors to learn how to become a truck driver.
Yeah. Well, my last unplugged show, when I did the Unplugged, was about this border or the port thing and lack of truck drivers.
Yeah.
Anything that solves the truck driving problem. I don't know what 18 years old has to do with the fact if an 18-year-old is qualified and he can drive a truck, that 18-year-old, as I mentioned last time on the Unplugged, I mentioned that it's a good living.
It can be, yeah.
It's somewhere between 55 and 75,000, not including overtime.
Right.
So if it solves part of the problem in this distribution mess we're in, it gets 18-year-olds to work quicker, they can make a good living. I don't see anything wrong with this at all.
No, and so 68,000 is the number of truck drivers needed for 2021. Truck drivers carry more than 72% of the freight by weight. So we are so behind on needing truck drivers.
68,000. I did not know that.
68,000 truck drivers are needed in the year of 2021.
That's a big problem.
It's a big problem. And my only qualm with this, because
Do you have a problem with this?
A little bit of one, is just that if you're 18, then you've been behind the wheel for what, a year, 2 years? I think it's generally why when you're behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, you have so much power, and it's a harder vehicle to drive. When you've only been driving for 2 years, I think experience comes into play a little bit. So that's my only hesitation about this, and that's, I think, in general, why usually truck drivers are older. They have more experience. They understand how to handle something this big with this much responsibility on the road.
All right, but let me just say, I drive on freeways up and down the toll road almost every day. Half the people that I come in contact with shouldn't have a driver's license.
I mean, I couldn't agree more.
I mean, are you kidding?
I know.
So,
the only hesitation.
If it solves the issue of this massive problem we have at the ports, I'm for it, provided they're qualified.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. All right, so we are talking about the home shortage. It is across the country. Frank, I'm going to let you take this one away.
I got a huge problem with this one. I am in the midst, for a family member, of trying to get a house either bought or leased in Dallas, Texas. Now, I've been in the same mode in Miami. I've been in the same mode in Los Angeles during this COVID meltdown situation. I've said a couple of times that because of COVID and because of some of these shortages, in Dallas, Texas now, this is really important, $1 million home pre-COVID is now $1.4 million. Same house. So that tells you a little bit about these inflationary things that we're dealing with. In today's world, though, there's a rigged game going on. There's not a lot of inventory. And I'll tell you what I've experienced. Realtors are pricing these homes a little less than they should, below appraisal, so that they can create a frenzy on a bidding war scenario where the realtors are blatantly saying, no house is going to sell for what we listed for. Well, that's a problem. I believe that to be unethical. I mean, that's a huge problem. And in Dallas, sometimes there's 7 to 10 contracts today. The market is not slowing down. And realtors are telling people, well, you make a full price offer on a house, okay? You make a full price offer on a house. Well, everyone knows it's going to sell for more than that. Well, why don't you price it? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to create this auction process.
The bidding war.
And I think it's terrible.
And it's, I'm trying to think about it from the point of view, if I were the homeowner, I mean, I would want that done, but I feel like that I would have a really hard time getting behind that as someone who's trying to buy them.
Sarah, people are sending testimonials in about their family and how bad they want the house, and they're showing pictures of their kids.
Yeah.
This is how desperate this thing has become. So I only say, The realtor relationships, and I've been in that business for over 40 years. What's going on right now is wrong. It's bordering being unethical, and I think the Real Estate Commission should step in and take a look at it.
That's interesting. We'll have to follow this one for sure. All right, we are talking about police and the vaccine, and I know your Unplugged has to do with defund the police, so kind of talking about this specifically, it has to do with the vaccine. Right now, police in Chicago and Seattle are threatening not to go to work, and
Why don't you start off on this one?
I was going to say, so I think that right now, with the defund police movement in place in so many places, there are so many people who are not going in to become police officers because they're, maybe afraid to go out there and afraid to be in a situation that they might make a mistake. So first off, a lot of cities are seeing a lack of police officers. And then this vaccine mandate, I think I've seen a lot of police saying that they're not going to get the vaccine. So on top of that, in Seattle and Chicago, places where police are really needed, if they're saying they're not coming to work, if this is happening across the country, mayhem's going to break out.
Yeah, and I'm going to handle the Unplugged, Sarah, on this, but I made a few notes on this. Across the United States, mostly in major cities, the police are really clashing now with the city authorities, and they're filing lawsuits against having to take the vaccine. And it's just not a really good scenario, especially coming off of the situation that we had with the very unfortunate death of George Floyd and all the backlash that went along with that. I think it's a real problem, but we lost a lot of police officers to retirement, early retirement, based on that scenario. Now, what is this going to cause?
And I think on top of that, police officers or the city, I don't know who is going to have to fund this, but in order to stay at the police station, they're going to have to submit semi-weekly negative tests in order to, or else they're going to have to be put on unpaid.
Well, this gets back to over the 100 employees, you got to take tests, right? And I've said repeatedly, the testing thing is a big problem.
It's going to cost too much
expensive.
Money.
It's really expensive. So, it really segues in to my Unplugged. So let's do my Unplugged. And I think then, Sarah, we can really talk and bring this whole thing together.
I agree.